everyone who follows this page and all in this build. I didn't do anything to this during the winter, and before that I haven't made videos or that many updates. I've been going through some stuff. It's personal, but it has to do with anxiety. Sometimes I don't want to do videos, and it's a whole clusterfuck. But lately I have been out here. I've been working on the motor. I haven't felt like recording, but today I figured I'd pull the camera out, dust it off. I cleaned everything. Everything was disassembled. Disassembled in the fall of last year. I cleaned everything up. I had this category, but the only thing engine related was literally rebuild engine, and I've been wanting to cross stuff off since I made the list, so I made a subcategory of engine list. Install main bearings, that's done. Install crank, that's done. This marker don't work. That's a great start to a video. That one don't work either, Billy. Piston rings, I have installed them. Wow, what is the point of these markers? These are brand new too. Piston rings, they're installed. Rod bearings, I don't have the pistons and the rods in yet because I have to install them. But the bearings are in the rods right now. In the rods and the caps. Install cam distributor, yeah. So there should be more to that list, but that's when I made the list. That's all I could remember. I've got my little workstation here. I've been taking everything slow and working on it. The heads are done. I rebuilt them the other day. I've got my crank in here. Crankety crank, crank, crank. Yeah, so I'm gonna start putting in the rods and all, the pistons. I had to get a new piston ring compressor because the one we had, this is old. These gears here, these are all worn down, so you'd tighten this, and as soon as you let go of the pressure, it would just decompress. So I got a new one. It's basically the same design, but it's not worn out. All the gear has teeth on it. So I'll spin the motor around and I'll get these pistons in. I cut some tubing. I don't have the caps that you put on the rod studs when you're putting the bearings through, but I got some tubing and I took a drill and reamed them out a little bit so they'd sit on the stud. So that's a good seal around there. Yay for new tools. Alright, I'll put these guys on here. Which side did I ream out? Was it this side? I don't even know. Well, that side went on easier, so maybe it was this side? No, it was probably this side. This will keep the studs from nicking the journal of the crank. And I got my little indentation on my piston. That's the direction it needs to go. So, looks like a good seal. Now, the way my crank is right now is I have this crank turned to where it's farther out, so this piston should go down quite a lot, and then I can work the way, because I'm doing this by myself. I don't want the rod smacking the crank. So during disassembly, I labeled my my caps. So I have number 1, and I have the direction of the arrow facing the front of the block. Things I've done since my last video. Cut the floor out. I'm getting ready to make my basically skeletal framing for the floor to strengthen the cab and to carry the weight of up to 2 passengers. I'm not gonna have more than 2 people in here. What else have I done? I did motor mounts. I'm not sure if that was in the last video. I welded reinforcements on where I cut a pie out of there and then bent these frame rails out. I still have to do some chassis reinforcement in the back here where this metal meets the Bronco 2 frame, but I'm going to save that for when I get the cab squared away in the floor. That way when I remove the cab, it's not going to be all fucked up, and then I'll be able to mess with that stuff more. I wasn't sure what front end to run on the Bronco, but I ended up getting a Jeep Girl. I think it's from either late 70s or early 80s. I knew nothing about Jeeps, but that's what I think it is. I've been spraying some vinegar mixture on it to get some surface rust, so when I clear coat it, hopefully it's gonna match the body. What I need to do today is I lowered the chassis yesterday because where I put the motor mounts, the motor sits up kind of high, so I don't have to worry about the oil pan bottoming out. And so I was sitting in it, and I was trying to get the feel where my feet would be, and there really wasn't room for a pedal assembly because that transmission is going to be like right in the center there, and I may not have room. The problem is these frame rails. These Bronco frame rails are, they're not out towards the rockers like a traditional, like somebody who is making a rat rod, that's where they would be. So I have these frame rails in the way. It's basically my foot's going to sit on either side of them, but they have to sit above because that's where the floor is going to be. The floor is going to come up from the rockers. It's going to go across the frame rails and then down. So I needed room. So what I did is I lowered the chassis because I didn't want to hike up the body and it'd be sitting high. So I noticed, okay, the chassis can go down, so I lowered the chassis using the torsion adjustments, and then I put the body up. One thing I got to do, I got to get those blocks out of there. I also need to weld supports going from down here, up here, down here, up here, and then get rid of this support so I can slide the motor and trans in. Motor's built. It's a stock 400 besides cam. The cams, it might be a stock cam. I'm pretty sure it was just like a little bit over stock stock measurements, but it should be good. I need to get an alternator. I need to get a starter. Luckily, I have a bunch of Mopar parts that are going into this. So yeah, what I'm going to do right now, I already got the engine stand out, and I'm going to weld in those reinforcements and then cut this thing out so I can get the transmission in there. I made the transmission mount when I made the engine mounts, so next time you see this should be with the motor and trans in. So I had said before I was going to cut this cross brace out, but that's keeping the sides together. And the reason I was going to cut that out is because I need to put the engine and transmission in place, and transmission won't go through that. So what I did is I made an over, where's my finger? There it is. I made an over, up, over, down, over, and connected it. So so I'll still have my support across, but I can get the transmission in there. Now I just need to cut here and cut there, and I'll cut this thing off too. Now to see what it looks like with the grill. Oh man. So the motor's in, transmission's in, it's on the mount. I still got to reinforce the mount a little bit. I'm using the actual cross member from the Bronco 2 transmission mount. I still have to buy new bushings. They're all melted from the fire. But so far I'm liking everything. This brace is probably going to go. I just wanted to stabilize the body and all. But what I'll probably eventually do is start, I'll probably start by welding these to the rockers. These are 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch. I think it's 16 or 14 gauge. I think it's 14 gauge. And I'm gonna use the existing cab structure of the Bronco 2, and I do want to use them, the mounts, but I was also thinking I could just bolt to this, drill holes, nut and bolt to this. I do want to reinforce the chassis here, have pieces come in for more support. Maybe put a stabilizer over the transmission, comes this way for the chassis. Back here I'm gonna have to do the same, just basically a bunch of pieces. I'm gonna come up from the rocker and then go across, and the floor is gonna be like right here with little things for transmission. But yeah, there's the rear. I have the LeBaron drive shaft. The LeBaron had a 318 904, and what I need to do is I need to find, first of all, that's going to have to be shortened. As you can see, it's maybe just over 3 feet, so that's going to have to be shortened. I also need to get an adapter so that drive shaft bolts to that. So I got to do that, but more importantly is I gotta get this body going so I can get everything structurally sound. I cut the grill to fit the radiator. The only problem is the radiator, the way this bottom is, this LeBaron subframe here is actually higher over here than it is here. And I just remembered that because when I was putting in these and I would tighten them and all, this side was up like this side was up like this, so I had to get everything level because of that. So because of that, the grill's sitting on different pieces because it's a little wider, but then the radiator is sitting on 2 other different pieces of that subframe. So what I want is I want the top of this to sit even with this,
like right above the fins of this radiator. But the only thing is, gravity is, the grill's sitting down all the way and it won't stay up, so I'll have to fix that. Like I said, the motor's done. Only things I'm worried about are, there's my steering box, and that's about a thumb width. It's about a finger width. I'm gonna have to cut more out of the metal here. I am going to make out of that 1.5 inches, I'm gonna make pieces that come up and over the A-arms and go down. So that should be good. Yeah, what else? That's about it. I gotta figure out how this bolts. This is from the 318. Hopefully it works for a big block. If not, I'll make it work. But yeah, I gotta get a starter. Exhaust is gonna be last, but I shouldn't have a problem. Trying to think of what else I'm gonna talk about here. But yeah, for now it's good. The ratchet straps, I used them the other day because when I cut the firewall out, this side, if you looked at the videos and pictures that I upload to Facebook and YouTube, you'll notice that the passenger side was always low. That's because it all rusted out, the seam sealer, and then the fire, and then when they soaked it down with the salt water, everything rusted over here. So I had ratchet strapped it to the beams up there just to keep it level, so I could cut it and then put that stabilizer in there. This is something I definitely want to share with people because it means a lot to me, and I know other people out there probably been through the same thing. They had a vehicle that got destroyed and they just didn't give up on it. So that's what everything is about here.